successful business owners and create your own path to success.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
It's time to hit the road to growth with team lead of the Enriquez Group, Realtor Vinny.
Hi, you Roach Growth listeners. Today I have a first. This is the first time I've had someone in the veterinary field. I've had people in the past where they've been like dog trainers and like the animal kind of field, but never actually veterinarian in that kind of field. Thank you, Dr. David Bessler, for being here today. He is the founder of Veterinary Emergency Group. So if you had to, and especially when it's a group that I've really never kind of taken on in an interview, I always ask, what's your elevator pitch? If someone asked you, what does VEG do? How would you describe it?
Yeah, so first thing I'd say, we call ourselves veg just because that's what the letters spell, and we're not embarrassed, and there's really nothing crazy negative about veg. Vegetarians, vegetables, all good things.
Oh, okay.
The simplest way to put it is our company is a national family of pet emergency rooms. So just like you have emergency rooms for people, pets get into all sorts of emergencies, and they need emergency rooms as well. And so we just have a national group of 40 veterinary pet ERs around the country.
Is there, so I was in Las Vegas, I don't know, a couple months ago, but I was talking to someone that owns a vet hospital, and they said that their numbers went drastically up when they started taking reptiles in. Do you see that for your different hospitals, or is that like across the board, or is that kind of an anomaly? I'm just intrigued.
Not really. We have some hospitals because we have hospitals really all over the country, from in the Northeast and the Southeast, West, Midwest. There are some variations by hospital. There's some weird things that we can't necessarily explain. Our hospital in Lincoln Park in Chicago sees more exotics than many of our other veges, many of our other hospitals. We have our practices down in Florida tend to see more, we'll call them exotics, birds, lizards, snakes, things like that. And we have one hospital out in the Bay Area in San Ramon, California. They see a ton of exotics as well. But for the most part, these are not, number one, reptiles are not super popular pets like dogs and cats.
Yeah.
But and a lot of people just don't think to bring them to the vet. And then also there aren't the full spectrum of emergencies. All we do is emergency. Something that I didn't mention about our elevator pitch is, we really are the only national brand of veterinary emergency provider. There are a lot of other people that focus on sort of everything, but we're the only ones that focus exclusively on emergency. And because of that, we say, I'm wearing my sweatshirt, we say emergency is our middle name.
Yeah,
literally, it's all we do. And so we do it better than anybody else because we've really found a completely unique, bizarre, out of this world way of doing emergency that really provides a really crazy differentiated experience for customers, people that come in with their pets.
Let's rewind a little bit to a young David. Young David, was he into animals? Was he into more building a brand? Who was young David kind of growing up?
Yeah, I think this is a great message for people who are entrepreneurs starting out, people who want to become entrepreneurs. Young David was a screw up. Young David managed to get himself kicked out of high school. I know that two of my kids are on a plane, and so they can't hear this, but they've heard it in the past. But I got kicked out of high school for mooning my teacher. That happened, and I had a lot of problems at home when I was a kid. My mom was sick for a very long time. I acted out. I was looking for attention. And while I was smart, but I just didn't do well in school and got myself kicked out. And the biggest lesson I think I learned is that you shouldn't let school or your performance in school dictate what you can and can't do in life. School is school, grades are grades. But I actually find very little correlation between the people that I meet, between how they did in school and how quote unquote successful or happy they are in life. And, so for me later on in life, I realized, I'm pretty smart. I can do a lot of this academic stuff. And I went back and I graduated from 2 Ivy League universities. And so, even though I got kicked out of high school, so there's some proof for you there. So what I would tell my younger self is, number one, you shouldn't have screwed up so much. Maybe, don't pull your pants down in class, but I would say, don't let school tell you what you can and can't do.
That's probably a message for most kids. Don't pull your pants down in class. Just
That's the way I start off. Whenever I teach like little kids, I'm like, rule number one, pants on.
now, question: do you think? I mean, and maybe you've thought of it, maybe you haven't thought about it. Do you think that the reason why you mooned the principal or the teacher was because you weren't pushed? Because you said you were a smart kid, you weren't pushed in school. Wasn't like, or is it more of kind of just being kind of a class clown? Or have you ever thought about that?
The latter. I was a class clown. It's
Okay.
funny. I started off, in some of the lower classes. Sorry, I take it back. I started off in let's say the middle of the range classes, and they decided David's not doing well because we're not pushing him. He's not challenged enough. So they put me in some of the higher classes, and I was just as much of a class clown in the higher classes. And so they actually had to make a lowest class for the worst kids in the school. And they made this like it was like the sweat hogs. Like we were like the worst kids. They made that class for us.
No, you said I mean, got multiple degrees after high school and got kicked out. I mean, what changed in your life that actually pushed you to actually go to school? You think someone got kicked out of school, it'd be like, okay, I'm done with that. I'm gonna do something different. I mean, what happened?
I think a lot of things. I have at different times in my life attributed my call it turnaround to specific things. I think it's a combination of several things. Number one, when I was 17 years old, my mom, who had been sick for much of my childhood, she eventually passed away, and I started realizing that life is short. That made me realize life is short. I was living overseas. I kind of ran away after my failure in high school. I just tried to get away. I moved to Israel, which is sort of a family tradition. I lived in Israel ended up living there for about 5 years, and I joined the Israeli army.
Oh wow.
And I served in the Israeli army. That taught me a lot about growing up. A combination of life is short. There are tremendous experiences out there if you just reach out and grab them. And all of those things in total really taught me that life doesn't happen to you. You make your life. And that set me on the right path. I was in the army. After that, I came back, and I started off at the State University of New York in Albany, and crushed it there just that 1 year that I was there, and said, you know what, I can do much more. I transferred to Cornell University, graduated from there, and then I went to the University of Pennsylvania for veterinary school. But all that was just using this. I grew up. Things happen to me in life. Terrible things happen to people in life, and often they grow from them. Challenging things happen and you grow from them. Those things happened to me when I was like 17, 18, 19 years old, and they just grew me up and made me into an adult.
When did you start come to the realization that this was kind of like the pathway that you're going to go towards? Was it right when you came back, or was it just in school kind of over time, or when did that kind of happen?
Yeah, when I was younger, I thought I wanted to be an artist. We take kids, we tell like, what do you like to do? I like to draw and I like animals. And they said, you should draw animals for a living, like, which is just the craziest logic ever since, I don't know, it's the crazy job drawing animals. But I think when I realized that I was able to do really well in school, I looked back on my life and I said, you know what? I really had always wanted to be a veterinarian. I love learning about animals. I love helping people, fixing things for them, making things better. And so I said, you know what? Why not? If I can do all these things, why not pursue my actual dream of becoming a veterinarian, which I'd given up on when I was much younger.
Now, you graduate from school. There's sometimes a difference from what you learn compared to what you learn in the real world. What were some things you picked up when you kind of transition into start your own practice?
So for the first 10 years of my career, I worked in other companies.
Okay.
I very quickly got into emergency veterinary medicine specifically, and realized that I love helping people with their pets when they need it most. When I was a little kid, I said, I love animals. And then you say like, well, I love helping animals. Then you realize there are people attached to the animals. It's like, I love helping people with their pets. And then when you do emergency, you're like, I want to be like right in the thick of it when there's like real crisis, real action. That's your biggest opportunity to make the biggest difference in the shortest amount of time. That's when I fell in love with emergency. And I devoted myself to emergency. I really became a leader in the hospitals that I worked in. I ran the emergency service at the first place that I did really an internship there, and I stayed on. And then I worked for a company. Actually, I joined them. It's probably still one of the nation's largest chains of specialty practices: oncologists, dermatologists, neurologists, and I started with them when they were really one hospital in Tampa, Florida. And I worked with them in emergency. Then they opened up another place in New York, and I ran the emergency service there, and was with them for about 8 years, and really watched them grow this company. After about 8 years, really all along, I'm the kind of guy that's I think this has to do with my rebellious younger self. I was always focused on what was broken and what could be done better, and we're never afraid to say, yeah, sure, even though this is the way it's been done for the past 100 years, I was never afraid to say, like, I think that's just wrong, and I'm going to do it in a better way. And so I found myself at that stage in 2013, having worked emergency for 10 years, saying, you know what, I know emergency better than everybody else does. I know what's wrong. I can tell what's broken. A lot of it has to do with the way we treat our customers and the way we treat our employees, and the fact that emergency is stuck into these bigger specialty hospitals. And if we can just change that, we can do emergency in a really, really great way. That's when I decided to strike out on my own in 2013.
When you had this kind of epiphany, was there any thoughts of you trying to change the company you're in, or was it, I'm going to have to do this on my own?
I was always changing the company that I was in. I think that has pros and cons. I think people loved it and hated it. I know that for now, our best ideas come from inside. They come from people who learn about emergency. They learn about what we do, about our brand of veterinary emergency. And they're so well acquainted with it. If they are also creative people, or just people looking to challenge the status quo, looking to fix things that are broken, those great ideas bubble up to the top. So I was that person. I was constantly saying, we should do this better. We should do that better. I have to remind myself of that now. When our people give me ideas, I get tons of ideas, thrown at us all the time. And sometimes I'm like, don't bother me. I just want to like focus on this. I have to remind myself, like, that's how VEG got here, by listening to those crazy people, those crazy ideas. So yeah, I was constantly doing that. I was constantly pushing us to do things differently. But as that company that I was with grew, they became less able to actually listen to those ideas and implement them.
Well, now, I mean, with the size that you're at, how do you allow yourself to take on those ideas and make it okay for people to give you those ideas?
I think it's like anything else that you're going to do great. It's great companies don't just happen. It requires a lot of, you got to know what you're doing, and it takes a lot of intentionality. And so we have built a culture. Our first core value is openness. And openness is the way that we run our ERs. There's no, the norm in the emergency world is to separate people from their pets. If you've ever been to the vet, they probably take your dog or cat and bring them to the back, where they'll take blood, they'll give injections, they'll do tests, x-rays, etc. And you stay up front. There's a lot of lack of transparency there, which can lead to anxiety. It's 1,000 times worse during an emergency. And so we have really the only veterinary facilities like this, period, where it's just one giant open space where pet owners and pets are there together. And in fact, sometimes you go to the ER, the people ER, and there's there are curtains separating you from the next emergency, the next family having an emergency. It's just a curtain. We don't even have curtains. We just have everybody in one giant open room, and everybody can see everybody else. So we really attack openness. We're very, very serious about our core values. And so openness is one of our core values. We like everything about our ERs have to be open. And the same thing about our company. Everything is full of openness here. Everybody has my email. Most of them have my cell phone number. They will text me, email me. I spend, 75% of my time out on our front lines at our hospitals, talking with every single receptionist, every single doctor, every single veterinary nurse. And they can come over and ask me anything, send me any crazy idea, and I'll respond to them.
Well, I guess two things, right? With the idea of being so open in, I guess, your practices, and then also in the business. With the practice, do the animals ever kind of fight with each other? And with the business, how do you stop it from taking too much of your time of getting inundated with so much ideas where it's like you have to work on other things?
So two things with the animals, the pets that are there. It's funny when you discover something that is naturally right. I don't know if I don't want to get into an argument whether there's objective right or wrong, whatever it is. When there's something that's like naturally right, it solves a lot of problems.
Mm.
And so, people would take pets away from their families, because a lot of times the pets would struggle and bite and all that kind of stuff with their people. And they're like, well, he's being protective. And so if I took him away, it would be better. But really what that means is if you can't see it, then, we can restrain your dog and you can't see it. So that's just better. What we solved is when we kept people and their pets together, that actually made the pets more calm,
Mm.
and they sort of pick up on the openness, the relaxed environment, the nature, and so they're much more calm. And then, yeah, it's a weird thing. The pets will all be in the same room, and we don't have fights in the back between our customers and one another, between our customers and us, or between pets and one another. And
Oh, wow.
with the exception of the occasional really angry cat or dog, between the pets and us. So that's the pets. In terms of me keeping myself functional, efficient, despite all this, I'll argue and say like that is my job.
Mm.
My job in this company is, there's this great book um, called The Leadership Challenge, which we give to all of our leaders, and it has 5 practices of exemplary leadership. Modeling the way is the first one, and that's really being what I'll call in Yiddish a mensch, being a good person. I have to model that way for everybody and show that it can be done, and also show that this is the way we do it. So I model the way. There's inspiring a shared vision, which is I have to have a vision. And I love those 4 words: inspire a shared vision, and that is like you have to inspire that vision. It has to be a shared vision, which means everybody has to buy into that. This is what we're trying to do. This is what we're trying to make our company.
Mm.
You have to buy into that. Otherwise, you're in the wrong place. So it has to be shared. And you have to actually have a vision. You have to present your people with a vision. This is what we're trying to do. And you try to make it clear for people. That's a really important thing that I do. It's just a lot of standing on a pulpit and preaching. This is what we're trying to do. You're headed that way. We're headed this way. Making sure people buy in. There's one of those 5 practices is challenge the process. And challenge the process is that it's like if you're in a company where you think they're doing things in a broken way, they're doing things that are not naturally right, um, you need to like speak up about it. And if I'm going to encourage the challenging the process as a leader, I need to listen to those things. That is my job. It eventually becomes we have to systematize it, meaning eventually, like right now we have close to 3,000 employees. At some point we'll have 30,000 employees, and I really might be inundated. But then we'll develop some system by which I can sift through those ideas and pay attention to the really important high return ones.
Do you have a like a rough system of when you get an idea and how you kind of break it down to actually see if it's something you want to implement, or is it off your gut? Or
Um, it is off my gut, but I do have some great, very literal, specific things. Our culture is extremely well defined. If we're famous in the veterinary industry, it's for our culture. And a culture is not just, if people talk about culture like good, is it a good culture? Is it bad culture? To me, it shows they don't actually understand culture. I'll ask you with the Vikings, was it a good culture or a bad culture? The Vikings thought it was great. If you went in there, you'd be like, yeah, this is great. I love the fish, but like, then the human sacrifice starts and you're like, oh, maybe
yeah,
not for me. Our culture is about very, very specific things, and cultures are either right for you or they're not right for you. They either align with your values or they don't align with your values. We have a very, very specifically well-defined culture. And so sure, I'll go with my gut for ideas, but I also just look back at the definitions in our culture, our 4 core values of openness, togetherness, heroic helping, and meaningful moments. I'll look at our belief in leading through love and not through fear. We have these kind of core tenets of our company, and I look back on those to help me make my decisions about what are good ideas and what are not.
that those core values, the culture, was that built over time, or was that something that was in the works when you're at the other companies for that 10-year period?
Yeah, it's built over time. They were honestly, to a large degree, built as a reaction to the other companies that I've worked for.
Okay.
They're kind of at the heart of fixing what I thought was broken about other places. This sort of privacy, secrecy was sort of the name of the game in other, and people talk about that, and it's one thing that employees always hate about their companies, sort of secrecy. And so we built a company built around openness. There was this idea of some people are more special than others in other companies. We built our company on a core value of togetherness. We're all in this together. Um, heroic helping is really what emergency is all about. It's going above and beyond. It's meeting a greater need with a greater sacrifice. And meaningful moments is really what moves our customers, but also what moves our veggies. We call our employees veggies. Are these meaningful moments that you create? Somebody brings in their pet that's dying, you save their life. Everybody cheers. Or even something mundane, like some dog ate a sock, and in front of everybody, we induce vomiting in this dog, and he throws up the sock, and the whole room like cheers. Like, hey, it came up. Those are meaningful moments. So those things we built over time, and they weren't built just by me. They were built by bringing on a whole bunch of like-minded people who were dedicated to that shared vision. We're all emergency people, so therefore we're all people that are really into heroic helping. We all love the same things, like that moment when you like create a big difference. That's a meaningful moment. And so if you bring on people like that, you tend to bring on people with shared core values, and that eventually became our company's core values.
I mean, talking about bringing on the right people, I think talking to most entrepreneurs, right? The right people around you are going to actually build your company out, right? So being that you have such strong culture there, I mean, is there like a process in your hiring that it kind of weeds out maybe individuals that might not be a good fit for the company?
Yeah, we have some people in our talent department who I want to bring on right now and ask them that question and say what have you done? We've made great strides towards that. Coming up with, people talk about Southwest Airlines has their brown shorts question, where they bring in a bunch of potential pilots and they're like, hey, we need you to put on these brown shorts, and the ones who are like, sure, no problem. Those are the ones who move on to the next level, where, the people who are too stiff to do that, that's it. They show them the door. We don't have anything really like that. We do have a lot of questions and an extensive interview process and an extensive sourcing process that does also reflect back on our core values and specific tenets of our culture to look for people. So we definitely do have that, but I wouldn't say we have it down to a science. There's still a lot of gut involved, a lot of meeting with our greatest veggies and seeing is this your kind of person? Then there's, in terms of, you were talking about bringing on people. As you grow a company, you bring on, we started off with a lot of emergency veterinarians and emergency veterinary nurses, and because we're an emergency veterinary company, we did that. As you grow, you have to bring in people into our corporate office, our what we call veg quarters. Everything is a pun at veg, so it's our veg quarters, VQ. And you have to bring people on that don't have the expertise that people in a veterinary emergency business would have. People in finance, people in marketing, people in talent acquisition. You bring on all these people. They somehow have to also align with those core values. One of the, I would say, probably the biggest moment in Veg's history was when I brought on my business partner, David Gladstein. And you would look at him on paper and you'd be like, finance pro, right? Worked in private equity. He approached me, sent me an email one day because he was just not happy in his previous job. He's like, what I'm doing, it's just this sort of gerbil wheel, of a career, and didn't feel like he was doing anything meaningful, and wanted to help grow a company. Of course, as a business person, you're just an engine. You need, what is the car that your engine is in? What are you enabling? And so he loved the vet space, had been following it for a while, and reached out to me with an email. I answered that email and invited him to come in. And what he did great was he was able to see, we had one crappy, no, that's not true. We had two hospitals at that point, but one of them was super small and crappy. We moved out of that building. So, and he was able to see those two hospitals and say, veterinary emergency, this business, and even look at me and say, here's somebody who's just, an animal who wants to change the world. Recognize those things and say, yeah, this is a company that I want to be a part of. And I think because of I guess what attracted him to our company and the opportunity attracted somebody who happened to also share those core values. Maybe that's coincidence, maybe it's divine providence, I don't know. But I have a business partner who's a business dude, who happens to really value openness, togetherness, heroic helping, and meaningful moments. He loves making meaningful moments happen and celebrate them. He loves being a heroic helper. He'll do these SOSs and fly down to one place and hire 1 million doctors over the course of 3 or 4 days. He's a heroic helper. Loves togetherness. Super social guy. Loves bringing people along on trips with us, and openness. The two of us, if I had $1 for every time we put our foot in our mouth, by spoiling things before we're supposed to. We have more money than we do now.
Was there ever a moment, being that you had two businesses at that time, or two locations at that time, and then this person wants to be your partner? I mean, you're giving up some of your, I guess, authority. Was there ever a moment where I could do this myself, I don't need someone else, or was it the right person is going to help me get there?
The easiest answer is, if you think I could do this myself, you're crazy. I mean, here's the thing. One great lesson that I learned is we have this ethos. It's another part of our culture. And one of our ethos bullets is we've got something to prove. And in one way, I have a tremendous chip on my shoulder. All those people that doubted me when I was younger, that like, yeah, David is that screwed up kid. When we have our greatest successes, I look back on that. I'm like, and I give them the kind of imaginary middle finger in my head. I'm like, screw you, see what I've done. But it also means we have something to prove, means we know that we have something. We also know that we have to prove it. And it's reminds us of the perfect balance between humility and ego. To be successful, you have to have an ego, which means you have to be confident about what you're good at, what you're actually good at. Have that self-awareness to know, you know what, I'm good at this, and I'm confident that I'm good at this. But also the humility to know, like, I don't know the first thing about that. And so I need somebody who's good at that. David and I have like the perfect balance there. It's like, look, I think if you scour the earth for like a really experienced, crazy emergency vet, you'd come up with me every time, because that's the kind of person that I was. Like, poured 10 years. I worked overnights for 10 years straight. Was really, really committed to emergency and being able to do all the cool things that emergency people do. So I'm really good at that. I started dabbling in business, and it turns out like I have a decent business sense, business mind, but I don't have the training in it. And David was he was just born for this stuff. I mean, for him, he's been involved in business. He's one of those guys who's like, somebody gave him, some stocks when he was, 5 years old, and, and he did amazing things with them. He'd probably be, turning lemonade stands, like franchising lemonade stands, when he was younger. So he was just built for this stuff. And the company would be like, we couldn't have grown this company without his expertise. By the same token, as he's the business guy, loves veterinary emergency, but like you need to have a veterinary emergency dude who knows a ton about veterinary emergency and what customers want, what patients need, and what veggie employees, what ER professionals need and want. You need to have that. So we need
looking back at kind of what you created. Do you look at one moment that was like the biggest like adversity you had to kind of go through, or speed bump you had to kind of work through to get where you're at?
No, the terrain is like one giant bumpy terrain. And I can, with like recency bias, I can think of probably something in the past year and be like, that was the biggest hurdle. But then 3 years before that, like, that was the biggest hurdle. I don't think that there was one really giant hurdle. Our company was formed. I have a chief of staff. Her name is Anna. She's amazing. During her interview, she really made this assessment of our company: is we got to where we are by putting one foot in front of the other in a very clearly defined direction. We were looking to be the world's veterinary emergency company. We had core values of openness and togetherness. And we put one foot in front of the other towards that direction, sometimes going off course and getting back on, sometimes stumbling, etc. But we always knew where we were going. And so I think, man, if I had one piece of advice for like every entrepreneur on earth, it would be to find your focus, know what your company does, be able to like say it really succinctly. For us, our mission is helping people and their pets when they need it most. And that is like the definition of veterinary emergency. That's our function on earth. VEG's function on earth is to help people and their pets when they need it most. And to know that that's what you do, that will put you back on course. Just whatever stumbling block, falls in your way, you can climb over it, get around it, and get back on track because you know where you're going.
So it's having kind of like the faith in, where the finish line is, to get through the adversity they're kind of working through.
Exactly. And I feel bad for companies that like don't exactly know. Like for us, everybody that joins our company, they see the value and the amazingness and the heroism in helping people and their pets when they need it most. I feel bad for companies that are like, you're another accounting firm, you're another law firm. And the question is like, what is your meaning? What drives you every day? And you're like, we make the world a better place through, you know, doing the accounting for companies that do really cool things. That is like a lot of stretches. It can be done, and a lot of companies do that. But we come with meaning baked in. I mean, what could be better than like saving the lives of puppies and kittens? Like if you were like a unicorn manufacturer, like that would be great. You know what I mean? But like we saving the lives of puppies and kittens, like that is the most meaningful work out there for 5-year-olds and 25-year-olds, 35-year-olds, 45-year-olds. So we have it easy in that respect, but we have to discover that and focus it and say, you know what, better than anybody else ever did is we identified that and said, you know what, we can actually make a world-changing business out of that. Everybody else before us just kind of like tacked it onto their business. You know, they said like, yeah, you know what, we should also sell these. But nobody else looked at it and said, you know what, these things are actually really remarkable, really special, needed all over the world all the time. We can actually make like just a these store. And that's what we did.
When you look at kind of where you're going, I mean, do you have a 5-year plan saying, hey, this is where we're going to be in 5 years from now?
That's like trying to predict the weather at 5 years from now. We have our 5-year plan is kind of the same as our 10-year plan, which is to be the world's veterinary emergency company. Right now, if aliens landed on Earth, imagine like before there was Starbucks or anything like that, right? Aliens landed on the planet, they stopped an Earthling and they said, you know, Earthling, what is this planet's coffee shop company? There wouldn't have been an answer. Then along came Starbucks. I'm like, now there's an answer, whether you like Starbucks coffee or not. Aliens land on the planet and they say they can stop anywhere, like almost on any continent, and say, Earthling, what's this world's coffee shop company? And they'll say Starbucks. Right now, if aliens landed on the planet and they said, what is this? You know, you have all these pets, all these people all over the world have these pets. They seem to care a lot about them. Those pets have a bad habit of just getting into shenanigans. They have emergencies. Like, what is this planet's veterinary emergency company? And there'd be no answer. And so over the next 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 years, we will become that answer. We will become the world's veterinary emergency company. That's our biggest picture. What that means is actually pretty obvious, honestly, what it means. We have a veg, you know, we have a veg here, a veg there. We used to say everywhere a band might stop on tour, we'll have a veg. You know, but really anywhere there are pets that have emergencies, we'll have a veg. The way I like to think of it is I picture first the United States, then I picture planet Earth, where there are these phantom veges. Yeah. They're really there. The need is there. Now we just have to kind of build the walls around them and make them real. That's our plan over the next 5, 10 years, is to build out all of those veges for this way. Everyone that has a pet that gets into an emergency can have that amazing open togetherness experience.
Well, I mean, with all the expansion you're going through, and if someone's listening right now and they're looking to go a pathway there, they want to help kittens and puppies. What's the best
and
way
lizards and lizards
and lizards? What's the best way of getting more information about veg?
Easiest, veg.com. Don't be afraid to call us veg. Yeah, you just go to veg.com. You can find out information about careers with us. You can find out where our locations are. There's a location finder, so wherever you are, just allow your browser to know your location, and it'll direct you to the nearest veg. You know, cool thing that we do if you're having an emergency with your pet is you call and you can speak with a doctor. Every medical question is answered by a doctor. That's not something that can happen anywhere else. And so, you know, the most common question is like, is this an emergency? Do I need to come in? And our doctors will get on the phone and walk you through it. If your dog ate something that's just not poisonous and you thought it was, we'll tell you, hey, good news, stay at home. Others will tell you to come in. So go to veg.com. It'll give you the phone number of the veg nearest you. It'll give you the address, driving directions, all that. Best place to go.
So is that a doctor? Are they just like kind of just taking calls, or is it like it goes to like a receptionist and the receptionist transferred over? What's that? Because that seems very different than I think a lot of.
I think the thing you're looking for is like, that seems hard to be a working doctor. It's our doctors that are on the floor, that are seeing emergencies. They take the time to pick up the phone and juggle all that. And when our doctors can't see all those cases and juggle all that, we get more doctors so that they can. And, you know, we just want to own that emergency experience. You're having an emergency. We're the best people to answer all of your questions and treat all of your emergencies. And so, number one, if you need to know if it's an emergency or not, like we want you to hear it straight from the horse's mouth. And not only that, there's a great thing that happens as you speak with a doctor. In the end, you know, they'll tell you, let's say, you know, you got to come in. I can't tell over the phone. I mean, if we do emergency over the phone, figure out how to do that, you'll put us out of business. but it's a hands-on sport. Like you gotta be able to feel and touch and see and do things. So that, tell you to come in, being able to speak with a person, work with a doctor that spoke with you on the phone. That's really magical. More important than that, honestly, which most people don't realize because they've never experienced it, is being able to form a relationship with the nurses that are actually doing the treatments, making your pet better. Most people forget doctors. The doctors kind of come in, they make sort of the high level, big picture decisions. They put their hands on your pet, bibbidi bobbidi boo, make decisions, but it's really the nurses, right? That's hidden away. Even in human medicine, like the nurses don't get the acknowledgement that they really need.
My wife's a nurse, and she tells me that all the time. So
yeah, I mean, ask her how often, around the holidays, is a box of chocolate sitting on the table, that somebody brought, and it's got the doctor's name on it. Dear Dr. Smith, thank you for the amazing care. The nurses are hidden, which is just a crime. That's one great thing that we've done by opening up our hospitals. People can really see the value. Our nurses really do most of the healing.
Well, thank you, David, for being on the Road to Growth podcast. Any last words of wisdom that you want to throw out to the audience?
Yes. Number one, focus. Know what you do. That's for the entrepreneurs that are on the show. And then I would say, watch what your dogs eat. For all the pet owners that are that are watching now, so many pets eat so much stupid stuff, and need our help. So just watch what your pets eat. And then actually one more important thing is know who your local vet is. Like, you should be able to name your veterinarian. If I ask you who your vet is, you should be able to give me a name. I want you to tell me the name of your veterinarian. Because they, in sort of maintaining your pet's health, you really need to do that. We see so many things that come in because people just haven't been keeping up with their pet's health, and eventually gets to a point where it's an emergency. So help us do our job better by, going to your local vet and getting the wellness care that you need.
Thank you again, David, for being here on the Road Growth podcast. I think for everyone listening right now, there's a lot of key takeaways, but one of the ones that probably sticks home with me for all the parents or young kids out there, if you got kicked out of school for doing something crazy, don't worry, their life's not over. Things can still go forward. You could build a big business. You could build something like VEG. So thank you guys for listening. Please subscribe, please share, and go in the show notes and go find VEG. Bye, everyone.